Imagine it's 2020 again. You're living your best life binging on godly amounts of anime that shouldn't be humanly possible, discovering so much peak fiction that you don't know what to do with yourself. Now wake back up to reality. You're bored as hell. You and I both know it. I mean, it's the reason you clicked on this video. But what if I told you I could restore your love for anime? Temporarily. Scott Pilgrim Takes Over is not your average anime. The plot goes like this. Scott Pilgrim meets a girl called Ramona and instantly falls in love with her. But in order to date her, he has to beat her 7 evil exes. Yeah, you heard me. There's a lot more to this particular adaptation of Scott Pilgrim. But before I continue, can we just acknowledge how desperate for Ramona you have to be to fight off 7 exes? Me personally, I don't care how good anyone looks. You would never catch me fighting off 7 potential serial killers or some girl. Oh yeah, by the way, did I mention Scott dies in the first episode to the weakest ex-boyfriend? You might be wondering why I would use such a strong word like genius in the title. Hold on, let me cook. In the graphic novel and movie, Scott Pilgrim does beat the first ex-boyfriend and progresses throughout the series until he's eventually defeated the final ex. However, Brian Lee O'Malley, the creator of Scott Pilgrim, decided to take a very interesting approach with this adaptation of Scott Pilgrim and essentially killed him off, opening the doors to infinite possibilities by bringing in so many more elements into the story, such as mystery and time travel. As you can tell from the description of this series thus far, it will push your suspension of disbelief to the limit, but it's a good thing, don't worry. It's just one of many factors that will keep you engaged, wondering what unthinkable event happens next is a part of the show's charm. Okay, this is the last spoiler, I swear. Scott Pilgrim didn't actually die, but he did get kidnapped by someone via a vegan portal. For the sake of not making you guys any more confused than you already are, let's skip over the vegan part for a bit. After such a huge event takes place, the main plot point has now changed to Ramona figuring out who kidnapped Scott and why, leading to all sorts of hilarious and entertaining interactions with the potential culprits, and of course watching how the rest of the cast gets affected by this sudden change in events was just an amazing experience. Speaking of how the cast gets affected, what is wrong with these people? When Scott died in front of their faces, they literally couldn't care less if they tried.
Yeah, Scott was my brother. He's alive? Well, then I guess I should say Scott is my brother.
It got to the point where their reaction was more surprising than Scott getting bodied by Matthew Patel, the first boyfriend. What the hell, bro? Is this just an average Tuesday for Canadians? Or you guys like this in real life? You Canadians better explain yourself in the comments. This show has something for everyone, so let me break it down for you into categories, starting with the fights. The type of fights Scott Pilgrim brings to the table are, dare I say, some of the most unique fights you will find in all of anime. If you've read the Scott Pilgrim graphic novels, then you'd be so happy witnessing these fights because it just feels like the author's vision for how he wants these fights to be portrayed could finally be fully realized. What I mean is, the fights are supposed to feel like you're witnessing a retro video game fight, except it's on steroids. Sure, they definitely look clean in the graphic novel, but it can't be compared to the high level animation, choreography, sound design and art style that was used to craft this anime. Now what makes Scott Pilgrim fights really unique is the fact that anything happening in those fights makes no sense. I mean, people can develop the power to damage the moon if they commit to being a disciplined vegan. If that doesn't give you an idea of how batshit crazy these fights are, then I don't know what to tell you. And the reasoning behind any of these fights even happening in the first place are completely unpredictable. Fighting someone to avenge your dead father? Fuck that. Let me pull off some sweet skateboarding combos on this bloodthirsty paparazzi that's big enough to populate an abandoned village instead. One other cool feature to note about Scott Pilgrim fights is that when you die, you don't start bleeding all over and leave behind a corpse. You just turn into coins or a power-up.
That's actually hilarious.
When I die, I hope that happens to me. I love how Scott Pilgrim can stay grounded in reality but always successfully adds its own unique twist to the world to keep it interesting. Let's talk about the music and sound design. I don't know about you guys, but if there's one thing that can get me hooked on a series like it's crack, it's the music, and Scott Pilgrim hits its mark every single time. The fact that Scott's in a band called, I don't want to say this and I'm not gonna lie, called Sex Bomb definitely helps, because then you get to hear awesome practices like this. amongst other things throughout the show. The opening itself might be another reason to binge this show all in one night, like I did, and I can barely get myself to watch 2 anime episodes a day, so you know this show is the real deal. The beat of the opening is absolutely insane. That bass combined with gaming sound effects works together so perfectly, like Sonic and chili dogs, I don't know. So if you can see how much I'm praising the beats of an opening, then just imagine how goated the OSTs are. The cast is so lovable. I challenge you to find one unlikable character and Scott Pilgrim takes off. Yeah, they definitely don't have masterpiece writing, but they feel real and can be hilarious a lot of the times.
Hey, you're the girl that got Scott killed, right? It's good to meet you.
Take Scott Pilgrim for example. He's just a normal guy who's in a band and has an obsession with Sonic to the point where he will use that knowledge to raise up girls with it.
You know Sonic the Hedgehog? You probably know this, but in the early 90s, there were 2 different Sonic cartoons airing at the same time. One was dark and dramatic, the other was a hilarious comedy about chili dogs. And the same guy played Sonic in both shows. Isn't that wild? The same guy playing 2 different versions of the same guy? Well, maybe you didn't watch cartoons, or you're not into chili dogs.
And I find that very endearing as someone who is pretty obsessed with games. One more fun fact about Scott, he's the strongest fighter in his province. You have to understand that there's way too many out of pocket things about the cast dolls. It's just crazy, man. So Scott lives in this apartment, right? But the apartment is so small that there's only one bed and he has this roommate called Wallace Wells. So they have to sleep together every night, but he's not just any roommate, he's a gay roommate. Why, bro? I'll be honest, Wallace Wells is too funny, but I can't go explaining why every single character is so entertaining or will be here for literal hours. Oh yeah, did I mention Scott has a Saito who's 17 and Chinese and he's 23 years old? And the way the series just brushes this off like it's a minor inconvenience.
Apparently a 23-year-old dating a high schooler is frowned upon by society.
Can't man, this show is so unserious. I think I've run out of things to say by now. Sure, I could pull out a million more examples, but then the video would probably suck balls. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is a fantastic adventure from start to finish. The plot twists are mind-blowing and you won't see them coming. I hope this video can convince anyone who hasn't seen it to give it a shot. And if you're already an existing Scott Pilgrim fan, then I hope you enjoyed watching me glaze the hell out of this series. And definitely subscribe. I'm trying to hit 100 by the end of the year and it's not going so well. So how about you fix that? Please. See you in the next video.